Chuck, thank you so much for coming on the show. It is always great to see you. I want you to describe what you see out there, because there is without a doubt, a narrative which just says the world's breaking down. And I see there's another narrative, which is that the private enterprise is going to save the day.
Well, first of all, Jim, thanks to you and Carl, and thanks for all the work you're doing to report on this accurately and try to help people navigate the complexity. I think of this in three ways. I think there's the medical response, which, look, there's a great deal of human ingenuity in this country, and I think will prevail, and I think will probably prevail faster than people think. Secondly, there's the fiscal side, which you guys understand and you're talking about on a regular basis. And then there's two other pieces there. There's the piece of helping our customers remain productive during this time, and also helping our communities, frankly, because it's a real difficult time, frankly, for the most vulnerable people, those hourly contract workers, as well as, the homeless and others in our society, and we have to come together. So we're working on both those latter two day and night, and I feel good about where we are. Companies are coming together. We convened about 35 companies on Friday in Silicon Valley to try to tackle issues of helping people financially who are struggling right now. Volunteers, frankly, are not showing up at homeless shelters and not showing up at food banks where they're worried about getting the virus, and we have to backfill those folks and figure that out. We have to deal with hunger with students being out of school. So there's an awful lot going on, and I think business is really beginning to step up in a big way.
Okay, Chuck, when you say we have to deal with, and we're in a different time. I think that when you and I were younger, this would be something that the federal government would handle, because the federal government's bigger than all of us. It sounds like that to some degree what's happened is these problems are either not being addressed correctly by the federal government is slow, or private enterprise is now the biggest source of social change in the country. Do you think it's the latter, or do you think you're leading and the feds don't understand? Or does the federal government kind of routinely focused not on the people who are 1099 employees, people who have just been laid off, but the people who actually have a paycheck coming from a solvent company? You seem to be involved in trying to help the people who do not have that.
Well, I actually think that, it's a combination of both that have to solve this problem. I mean, I spoke to Governor Newsom yesterday, and he's made some great moves relative to, moratoriums on evictions, moratoriums on foreclosures, moratoriums on services being cut off, utilities, internet, et cetera. And I think there's a lot of work going on to provide hotel space for those who are vulnerable. But I think that I think it is both, and I think that look, sometimes it takes the government longer to get some of the things moving that you guys have been talking about for a couple of days now. And I think in the interim we have to step in. And many of the companies have made the commitment to continue paying our hourly contract workers, those workers who would have been in our cafeterias, those workers who have been in our custodial staffs. I mean, those are the ones who are going to suffer. And so making the commitment to pay them at 100% during this crisis are just easy things that some of us can do. But unfortunately, every company can't do that. And we have to find a way to make sure we're helping those who aren't in that situation.
Those are the people who are being overlooked so far. Chuck, in the meantime, there's a big change in the way people do work. People working from home. I see you. I'm not sure exactly where you are. It's certainly not. It looks good. But you have a thing called WebEx, and WebEx is what big companies use to be able to make it so that you don't have to go to the office. Is there a fundamental change? And if I were to call you today for WebEx, would you be able to just say, hey, sure, Jim, no problem? Or is it, say, 10 times the demand that you had a few weeks ago?
Well, I have to say the volumes are unprecedented. In the last 10 or 11 days, our volume has literally doubled. Since the outbreak in China, we saw 22 times the traffic coming out of China. We've seen 4 to 5 times the traffic in Korea, Japan, and other areas. And we were already the biggest platform globally in the world. I'll give you a statistic. Yesterday, we held 3.2 million meetings globally on WebEx, and that doesn't include one-on-ones. These are multi-individual meetings. And in the first 11 business days of March, we've had 5.5 billion meeting minutes. So, look, we're just building as fast as we can. Our teams are working 7x24. We're trying to boost our collaboration team and our security teams spirits because they're working around the clock. Everybody's working from home. They're having to increase the capacity of their VPN connections and security, cloud security. We're giving a lot of that technology away for free for now until we get through this issue. So, we're working as hard as we can. A lot of our competitors, a lot of our peers are doing similar things. And I think it's just it's great to just see everybody coming together to try to keep the companies productive while we're going through this crisis.
Hey, Chuck, it's Carl. You talk about getting through this issue. I mean, there is this hopeful narrative that China and Korea, as you mentioned, are a quarter, maybe half a quarter ahead of us in this whole nightmare, and that they will offer demonstration that there is a door at the other side. Are you seeing any signs of that?
Well, I see the same things you guys see, and I listen to the medical experts who I think have been just very steady through this whole thing. You listen to folks like Gottlieb, and they know what needs to happen. And I've heard this morning 5 million tests, Jim, I think you talked about, and then I've talked to some of my friends in the pharma industry, and that's where this notion of this human ingenuity that's going to come through. And I think that we are the most innovative and country in the world, and we have lived through crises, and I think we'll get through this one. Now, how long it takes, I leave that to the medical experts, but in the interim, I think it's our job is to focus on helping those in our communities to the extent we can and making sure that our customers are taken care of as well, and our employees.
Chuck, I also know that you took a lead. Mark Benioff gets a lot of credit, and we love Mark here for doing this, but to try to help the homeless. I did want to say that for some degree, your company has been a leader in this. And I want to talk about the evolution of what I regard as ESG, particularly for the younger viewers out there. I'm listening to you. My Chapel Trust is a Cisco shareholder. How do I, as a shareholder, how do I justify all the money you're spending on these things? And I'm just being devil's advocate. I obviously feel that these things are very important, and you and I both know each other off screen. But how do you justify this to the shareholders that this is the right thing to do, given the fact that, that it's going to hurt the quarter?
Well, I tell you what, we have one thing I've learned in the last few years is that these community issues and giving back in your communities and helping those who are less fortunate is critical to our employees. And they want to work, and increasingly, we talk about the millennials, but it's every generation. Employees want to work for companies with a purpose. Employees want to work for companies that care about the communities in which they live. And so I think that we get the best employees when we do these things. They're more motivated when we do these things. They innovate more. They're more excited about coming to work. I think that's one of the big things. I think our customers appreciate it. And I think in general, it actually fits very well into the overall economic strategy that we have for our business plan. I think that look, the more motivated your employees are, the more they innovate, the more excited they are about coming to work, the better job they're going to do. And I think that's how I've figured out that this is really the right thing to do. But as it relates to this crisis and this quarter, I think we all just have to do the right thing for our people and not worry about the quarter. I'm
so glad to hear you say that. One last thing, Chuck. We've seen this illness ravage whole countries. And they're countries you do a lot of business in. And some people feel they started to come out on the other side. In the interest of actually being optimistic for a second, how's business in South Korea? How's business in Japan?
Well, we have, look, there's huge demand for our video conferencing, our conferencing technologies, our security products. I mean, companies are trying to build out capacity to support all these companies working from, our employees working from home. But, we've been singularly focused on just getting whatever equipment these countries need. We've taken equipment into these pop-up health clinics in China and Korea. We've been bringing in WebEx to universities to try to help them get back up and running. So I think it's too early to tell sort of what the business conditions are going to be after they come out of this. But I think during the crisis, we're simply focused on trying to help them with whatever needs they have.
Finally, Chuck, I mean, it's so notable that you're working to help others. You also got to help yourselves, though, keep the balance sheet strong. Can you talk about any efforts to bolster up credit, things like that in terms of building a bridge for Cisco over the next couple of months or quarters?
Well, we're fortunate, obviously, that we have a very strong balance sheet. And we think that, over the next few quarters, our customers likely are going to come out of this, and I think they'll realize that this crisis has demonstrated that they need to beef up their infrastructure even more. So I think that, right now, the irony is that what we need are companies that understand how to build at-scale infrastructure to support what's going on in the world. This is unprecedented. I mean, can you imagine thinking, like when we designed a lot of our technology, can you imagine me telling our teams, I need you to build this so that it can accommodate every person on the planet working for a company. They're going to go home and work from home, and you need to scale to support that. So I think it's bringing new requirements to bear. I think our balance sheet is strong. I think we'll get through these short-term issues, and then I think we'll do very well going forward, Carl.
Chuck, thank you so much. And I know Carl and I share. Carl shares this. It's just good to hear a kind of different tone. There's a sense that I think that corporate America is really rallying, not running from, but running to help. And I want to thank you, Chuck Robbins, CEO at Cisco, for your comments and for doing something that longer term is going to help everyone. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised, as you said, we are going to come through this. It may not be years. It may not be seasons. It may just be months. Thank you so much, Chuck. Good to see you.